Hello and welcome back to the Genesis Designs and Modelcraft workbench. Here we are, part 4, the final part of the holiday build. Yes, it has overrun a bit, but these things happen. This is the ICM 1/32 scale Fiat CR.42 Falco. So where we left it last time, I had finished applying all the squiggles and what have you, and had some of the decals on. So since then, obviously, I finished the decals. And I've done some panel line wash and I've put some flat coat on, which as you can see is not super flat, as is my won't. I don't like super flat models. I think they look, excuse the pun, flat. So that wing is good to go. I caught it up on the rest of it, the GB race plane version here. So wash wise, I've used a Mo of MIG panel line wash underneath, panel line wash blue grey, which is Ammo of MIG 1613. It's a nice tone for this colour. It's darker but not massively darker, and it's got a bit of a sort of a slightly brownish tinge to it too, and I've used that, as you can see, around the nose, the bottom of the cowl there, to represent a bit of leakage and filth coming out of the engine. You see the bomb racks are fitted, those are just straight RLM 76 for now. And then the top surfaces, there's not that many panel lines to deal with really, but what there is, I used MIG Productions dark wash for, and the reason I went for such a dark wash is very simple. Here is the aforementioned, it's a very dark brown. Because there are so many colours going on here, I wanted something that was just going to be dark enough to show up against everything. So in places it does perhaps look a little more stark than one might prefer, but overall I think it works. Demasked the windscreen, that's come out really nice. You see the lovely shine on those transparencies there. So what I've got to do now is a bit of detail painting here and there. I have to paint the cockpit combing and the headrest cushion in. Actually that's it. There will be a little more wash going on to these undercarriage legs. I applied bare metal foil to the telescoping part of the oleo there before fitting the torque links. The torque links are painted and ready to go on, but before fitting those, used bare metal foils cut into a strip the same width as that length there, and just wrap round, burnished on with a cocktail stick. Can be quite fiddly, but in this scale it's quite easy to do. So I need a little bit of wash on those, fit the torque links, and away we go. Obviously been working away on all the rest of the guff at the same time. Here's a little tray of parts. Now all of these struts are individual for each position, if that makes sense. They're all handed and go a certain way up and what have you, and clearly they need to be painted before they can be fitted, or at least base painted, which is all this is. So I had to come up with a way of being able to identify them once they were off the sprues. So what I did, I really hope you can see this, I can't see it on the screen but maybe you will in the footage. I've scribed the number of each part into the bottom somewhere of where the strut fits. So each one, they're hard to see, each one has got its number carved into it so that I can tell which is which. Tail wheels painted, bomb racks, whatever they are, machine guns, these were hollowed out, they come as thick lumps. I've hollowed them out, and then the old-fashioned style pitot, which has also been hollowed out. So they're all ready to continue work. The struts will get some more work once they're fitted. You can see where they go is these really good solid location points everywhere, but as you can see, if I just position this into in situ, it fits in here and it falls straight off again, nice, right in this sand patch. So the fact that it's all green is a little incongruous. So what will happen is, as I go around test fitting, I will paint the struts to suit the overspray and to suit the camouflage pattern, just where they fit. Main wheels, base painted, just silver centres, rubber black tyres, nothing special. We have 4 bombs, presumably 250 kilogram ones. Those are just assembled and painted with RLM 66 actually, and I painted the control horns either for the ailerons with RLM 66 as well. And last but not least, we have the propeller. It's quite a nicely formed thing. It's aluminium on the front and it's black on the back, and I've worn it, and all I did to achieve that was I sprayed the whole thing aluminium first, and then when I sprayed the black on, I just faded it off, so I never painted the tip, and then I've just used Trizac just to rub it down, blend it, and it looks very much like a back half of a propeller that's been used in a dusty environment. Then the hub, the blades were masked off, the hub was painted in AK Extreme Metal Aluminium, which is much shinier than this. This is LP11. Then the front face of the blade, and the camera's never going to pick this up honestly, but it's vaguely visible to the naked eye. I used the AK weathering pencils. I used the aluminium and the dark aluminium and essentially scribbled the blade out towards the tip, and then blended it with my finger, and it's just left a sort of, it just has a worn look to it that it didn't have before. But I say the camera's not going to pick it up, but it is there. And then the centre, the spinner, is painted with XF61 as per the instructions. So what I'm going to get on with now is just those bits of detail painting and little bits of assembly, and start working towards getting these struts set up. The plan is I will one by one go around, fit each one into its respective position, wherever that is, and then touch up the base of it, add mottling and overspray as required. And once that's done, I'll glue all of the struts into position on the lower wing and the fuselage using the slower type of Tamiya liquid cement, because that gives quite a lot of setup time, so I can get them all in and they're not going to fall out, and then line them up, get the top wing in place, make sure everything's square, and then the top wing can come back off or stay on while they dry, but basically leave it so that all the struts are fitted and in position and glued to the lower part of the aircraft. So I shall get on with that, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, so this is what I'm on about. I've got the cabane struts on. I did these been sat drying for a couple of hours. Simply applied some of the Tamiya standard plastic cement. So this stuff is fairly significantly thicker than extra thin. It doesn't call itself extra thick, but it's basically, it's a similar consistency to the likes of the Revel contactor. It's similar to this, but it's in a bottle with a brush rather than a blue squeezy doodah. So yeah, bit of that glue, pop them into position. Now the ends of each strut, all of the struts have angled sort of blocks on the ends. So when introduced to their respective positions, they sit at an angle. So once I got them all glued in, leave the glue for long enough for it to set up a little bit so it doesn't just flop about, and then offer up the upper wing. And doing that, we bit by bit, there you go, so that all of the end pieces of all 4 of those struts, so all 8 contact points, were sitting in the apertures in the lower wing. When that is there, or when that was there, I then did the old looky, see that the alignment looks something right. You can see there I've got that lined up with with the markings on the bench, and you can see that that upper wing is sat straight and level. And then I left it like that with the upper wing just pushed into place for long enough for the glue to set to the point where the struts wouldn't move when I took the wing off, which they didn't. And then that been set aside and left for a few hours to harden up a little bit more before carrying on, basically because this now gives me a reference point, so I can repeatedly pop that top wing on and off, on and off, on and off as many times as I need to get the second set of struts lined up in position, tack glued, lined up with the wing, and then final glued. You get the picture. But the idea being I can have all of these struts. I think that one goes here probably, maybe not, that's one of them. I want to end up so that I've got the others in position like this, and then I can add the cross bracing to the outer pair before I then fit the upper wing permanently, basically. Just that saves a little bit of faffing around with the rigging. It's not the end of the world if I can't, because access will be quite good because of the short lower wings, but that's what I'm going to be carrying on with now. Other than that, I've painted that cockpit surround and the cushion, added the machine gun barrels and the tail wheel, which is completely free to rotate because of the way I made that axle for it. I'm going to carry on with the struts now, and I'll be back soon. Alright, I've got all the struts in. Plan went as I wanted it to, as I did with the Cobain struts. Just added each pair in turn with the liquid cement, let it set up for a few moments, then plug the top wing in to get the alignment. So all 12 of the struts are in place. Looks quite funny actually, doesn't it? And the little touch-ups and blends and whatnot for where the oversprays and everything, they've all been added on. So these are all dry now. They do still move, but not much. They're basically in the right place, all bar this one, which is just a tiny bit short, which is a bit annoying, but it does push into position when the top wing's out, pops in no problem. So once they're all in and dry enough, I added the rigging between these outer struts. This is just ordinary Aero Club lycra thread. It's quite thick, and as such I don't use it that often anymore actually, because it's quite overscale for most things, but for a 32nd scale model it fits okay. Reference pictures I just googled. On the real aircraft, these wires are the airfoil section. It's not a cable, it's like an airfoil section. They're quite hefty. There are no turnbuckles on them, or at least not visible ones, because they go into the fairings on the ends of the struts. So actually just a simple length of thread is entirely appropriate, and thank goodness for that. So there we go, that is basically it. All I have left to do is fit the top wing, and I've got to let that dry for overnight. And then there's just the sort of the bombs, the wheels, the props, and a few tiny bits to pop on, and a little few touch-ups with the weathering. Got to do a bit more work with the weathering on the wheels and tyres. Just made a start on these. Not done much. There's a bit more work to do on those, and I'll probably weather the bombs up a bit because they're a bit uniform. But yeah, not far to go at all. So when I come back next, I'll have the model basically finished, and we'll have a little wash up on the kit, good points, bad points, etc., and finish it off. Okay, sport fans, here we are. It's done, finished. We're on to tomorrow now. We last saw it last night, just before I glued the top wing on, I think. So the upper wing was glued on using the Revel contactor cement with the applicator. Reason for that, I just simply chucked some glue in the recesses in that upper wing. Easy to do with that metal tube applicator. Then pop the wing on and held it down for a few minutes. There's a little bit of spring there, and the outer struts in particular were prone to lifting away if I didn't hold the wing down, but I only had to do that for a couple of minutes till the glue took. After that, quite simple, few bits of touch-ups here and there just around the strut bases generally, some for the overspray colours and some for just the inevitable little bits of damage you get and little bits of glue overspill. The thing with glue overspill is it tends to leave a glossy sort of ring around the parts, and I get rid of that just by putting a little bit of flat varnish in there and just matting those shiny areas down. Final assembly really came down to wheels and bombs. The wheels are held in with the brass tubes and are fully rotatable, which is great because it makes it ever so easy to align the flat spots which I cut into the wheels. The only downer being when you want to take photos and things, you have to remember to make sure that the flat spots are on the ground and not somewhere else. And that's it really. Navigation lamps on this are separately moulded clear parts which I sprayed whilst they were still on the sprue with red and with green. There's also a position lamp on the tail, I've left that clear. I added a little bit more the filth underneath just from the engine, just filled that in a bit with the black brown spray mix and a little bit of speckling, using the airbrush at super low pressure. The thing with the method I use with this, by putting down the light, quite subtle streaking with the enamel washes first, I find that when you just put a light overspray of this black brown mix over the top of that, it seems to just allow the streaks to come out a little bit. They almost look a little darker because of it. Does work well, I think. It's dirty but not ridiculously dirty. A little bit of leakage, just looks operational really, which is all I wanted. There's no other real weathering. I added a bit of slightly flatter varnish to the top front of the cowl, where the aircraft would naturally catch the sun pretty much the most, and with it being a metal surface and everything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The tyres and wheels, will you focus without my hand? Will you hell? Done it now, haven't I? There, that's about as good as I'm going to get, isn't it? Lots and lots of layers there. It perhaps doesn't look much from here. I just wanted a dirty appearance. These would have been operated mostly from somewhat unprepared strips, with dust and mud actually quite prevalent. So the way I go about representing that on tyres is just lots of different layers of wash. You put some wash on, you let it dry, blend it in, put some more on, blend it in. It doesn't seem like it's doing anything, but over time it builds up quite a nice effect. So that's what was done there. And that's about it really. I'm quite pleased with it, it looks quite nice. I like the paint job. I wasn't sure, halfway through the build I wasn't sure. Not gonna lie, I was thinking it wasn't really looking like I really wanted it to. I'm sure people can identify with that. When you start a project, you oftentimes have a picture in your mind to some extent of where you think you want it to end up. And I wasn't 100% sure that was happening, but yeah, I'm happy enough with it now. It looks decent. One improvement I would make if I were to do it again, I think I would put all the decals on, gloss it in and matte it in, and then do all the squiggling, because having to use a flat varnish over the top of the overspray work, the squiggling if you like, it kind of makes the whole thing look a bit too blended and a bit more like a deliberate paint job and a bit less like a load of haphazard overpainting. It's a small thing, but in this scale, I think it's worth trying to pay attention to the sort of overall textures of your paintwork a bit more. And an overall flat varnish can really kill a big model like this, make it look very, very dull. Excuse the pun. So as for the kit itself, the general build and my impressions of it, it's absolutely superb. It's very typical of the latest or later, more modern ICM releases. It's moulded beautifully, it's very crisp, but at the same time quite chunky. Really, really easy build. All of these struts with all their angles just went together so nicely. It isn't foolproof, of course it isn't, but with a little care, and I sort of showed you the process, it just fell together. And the same is true of the whole thing. There's really no filler in it. It's a really nice build. There's enough detail, you know. It's not. I imagine if someone like Tamara or Edward did one, there'd be more detail from the box. But what we've got here is completely appropriate. It's completely adequate, and you know the finished result really does look the part. So yeah, no issues with the build or the moulding. The decals were really, really good. Fabulous actually, having just had to fight my way through decaling that special hobby measurement with those ridiculous new Edward decals. This couldn't be more difficult. They're so easy in use, and you know, and super lovely kit. I really like it. Really like the build. Really like the finished product. 40 odd pounds roughly in the UK. Really good value for money, I think. It's not the most complicated high parts count kit you're ever going to encounter, but it's just good solid kit making. They have just released here in the UK the 32nd scale Tiger Moth, obviously continuing the theme of 32nd scale sort of interwar creatures. I do love the Tiger Moth actually, but I think well, the next one, I want to do the I-153, and I also want to do a Gladiator, because I've got an I-16, a PZL-11, this, and I think they represent these kind of stocky, burly, late biplanes, and I kind of like the antithesis really between it being a biplane and being fabric, but also being clearly quite a stocky little aeroplane. I like that contradiction, if you like, and the Gladiator fits that just as well as this does. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I thoroughly recommend it to anybody really. Even a relative beginner should be able to get a decent result out of this model without too much trouble. It's widely available, it's not too expensive, it's not too taxing, so yeah, thumbs up ICM. Plus they will look after your pets as well. So there you go, that's it, the holiday build finished. Next project for me is going to be a Gulf War Tornado GR1. Looking forward to getting started on that. So yeah, I'll see you with that soon, and until then, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.